The Amazing World of Gumball is one of the most popular shows of the modern cartoon era. It has unique art style, outside-the-box humor, and a social media presence so massive that it generates millions of views on the internet even after its last episode airing in 2018. With the 7th season coming out, a confirmed movie coming to theaters, and an expo that wrapped up a couple months ago, the blue cat with the tan sweater is here to stay. But if you look behind the curtains, Gumball Watterson isn't who you think he is.
Please, trust me. On the inside, I'm pleased.
I hope you crash and burn, Darwin Watterson!
Yes! Yes!
These are just a few examples of who Gumball really is. You might remember him as a silly, happy, funny kid. Still, behind that mask, there's a manipulative, psychotic, attention-seeking junkie who will do anything to make the world revolve around him. And we're going to find out the mystery of why that is. This is Gumball's serious problem. So, what is Gumball's problem? Well, Gumball, for all intents and purposes, is a narcissist. What that means is he has an excessive amount of admiration for himself, to the point where it can be problematic for those around him. Narcissism brings a lot of toxic traits that can stick out like a sore thumb. But before we can truly unravel this side of Gumball that turned him into an attention-seeking, power-hungry monster, we need to first look at where it all started. Zachary Christopher Watterson is a 12-year-old kid who lives with his parents Nicole and Richard Watterson. He also has two siblings named Darwin and Anais. He lives in Elmore, California and attends Elmore Junior High. This will be the foundation of how we see Gumball's life early on. And the episode here best shows that. In season 1, episode 2, named The Responsible, Gumball's parents are about to leave the house to attend a parent conference, but they need to find a babysitter to watch Anais. The babysitter that Richard hired, let's just say they were a little unequipped for the job.
Hi, I'm here to sit on the baby.
What?
So Nicole has no choice but to appoint Gumball and Darwin as the babysitters. Nicole and Richard make their way off, and Gumball and Darwin's job has officially started. Now, this episode is important because it's the first time we see Gumball's family in action. Nicole is more of the assertive, dominant type, while Richard is more of the chill and laid back one. Not only that, but we see how Gumball interacts with his baby sister, Anais. Now, the main quirk of the episode is whatever Anais does could lead to a potential safety hazard, which Gumball and Darwin can't allow. Little things such as going upstairs because stairs can cause injury, or watching TV because it can expose one to violent content. I find this episode to be very charming because it's very much how a kid would think if they were in Gumball's shoes. You're given this huge responsibility as a kid, and it matters so much to you that you begin to overdo things. Being the second oldest amongst 3 other brothers, I can tell you that being given the task of watching over the house really gives you a sense of responsibility and purpose. So I understand exactly how Gumball is feeling. You feel like you can't let nothing go wrong. Now, obviously, things get out of hand in which the house gets completely flooded and all 3 of them free fall from the sky.
Hey, we can use this diaper as a parachute and float safely.
You know, typical Gumball shenanigans. But this episode for me is what I remember Gumball to have been like. Someone who was caring, attentive, a bit reckless, but not to the point of it getting out of hand. Now, with that being said, when did everything change? When did we go from Gumball Watterson to Gumball the Narcissist? Well, the earliest example is surprisingly from the first episode, named the DVD. The first thing we see is Gumball laying on the couch watching TV in his underwear. The first interaction we see is with his mother, who asks Gumball to return a CD back to the movie store. Here we get a glimpse of Gumball's lack of responsibility, which is another narcissistic trait.
The money I have to go and earn to feed you kids.
The kids you decided to have.
Huh?
Gumball then obliges and looks for the CD around the house. He then runs into Darwin, who is using the CD as a pizza cutter. Shocked by this, Gumball criticizes Darwin and shows him how to properly clean a CD.
The slightest scratch and they're ruined. Forever. Gumball? I am fed up with your carelessness, Darwin.
The episode continues to where Gumball literally runs away from his responsibilities and does things the hard way. Now, these examples are more on the lighter scale of narcissistic traits, considering I think we've all brushed aside our responsibilities, disrespected our parents, and done something stupid like this. But an episode where Gumball's narcissism becomes more evident is from season 1's The Laziest. The episode essentially establishes how lazy and irresponsible Richard is as a parent and character as a whole. So much so that he uses Gumball and Darwin's eagerness to play with him as a way to make them do his chores. They both catch on quick to their father's schemes, and so a bet is made.
If you can find anyone lazier than me in this town, I'll do your chores for a whole day. And if you lose, you'll do mine for the rest of your life. How does that sound?
Hey, sounds like a fair bet to me. Gumball and Darwin try to compete with their dad in being lazy, but they are no match for his couch potato lifestyle, so they find someone else to compete for them. They go around Elmore seeking advice about who is the laziest, only to hear about a man named Lazy Larry. Now here's the thing about Lazy Larry. Despite his name, that's no longer who he is. Lazy Larry is a man who is doing pretty well in life. He has a job, a car, a house, and a beautiful girlfriend. He has set aside his lazy lifestyle for a better future. But do you think Gumball cares about that? The answer is nope. Gumball and Darwin pressure this man beyond belief to where it starts to affect his work life.
Gonna have to let you go.
Now that you don't have a job anymore, will you come to our lazy off?
No!
It starts to affect his personal safety.
Please.
And it even starts to affect his love life.
There's something I've been meaning to ask you.
Yes, Lawrence?
Would you
Please do it, Larry! Please do it, Larry!
get out of my life?
I can take a hint, Lawrence.
Please do it, Larry!
Now, I'm not gonna lie, when I was younger, this episode was hilarious. To see an innocent man get terrorized by two annoying kids over a childish bet, honestly, this is what cartoon comedy was made for. But now that I'm older and I'm looking at this in real time, this was pretty messed up. For the same reasons that made Larry's situation funny, it's also what made it all the more tragic. Gumball's lack of empathy caused Larry to lose everything in the blink of an eye. So what does Gumball do in response to it all?
So, now that you've lost everything, will you come to our lazy off? Yay, Larry! High five! We're back in the game!
If Gumball could for a second put his life in Larry's shoes, he'd maybe think twice about going this far to get what he wanted. But when you have lack of empathy, that virtually becomes impossible. While comedic in nature, this for me is one of the more stronger examples where Gumball's glaring problem caused the downfall of someone else's life. Now, you might be looking at these examples and thinking, Murray, I don't really get the sense that Gumball is a narcissist. He comes off more as just a reckless, defiant kid who's going through the motions of life. If under the right circumstances, any kid can make terrible decisions, possibly, but here's the thing about narcissists. They could care less about other people's problems because everyone else is beneath them. Everyone around Gumball is a background character, and the moment they become the center of attention, they become his enemy, whether he's willing to admit it or not. Now, to the other side of that, you might be like, but Murray, isn't that the whole point? It's called the amazing world of Gumball, not the amazing world of Darwin or Larry. It's Gumball. That is true, but here's also the thing. The big word in that isn't Gumball, its world, which means that other unique characters with different lives and stories are in it. They deserve to have their story told as well, without Gumball interfering, which the creator of Gumball, Ben Baquelet, did pretty well with an episode like The Extras. In that episode, you get to see the lesser known characters finally get some spotlight for a change. To see their daily lives play out and see their personalities was a fresh change in tempo without having to feature Gumball all that much. So what happens when you get an episode where Gumball isn't the center of attention, but another character is? You get narcissism at its finest. In the episode The Others, Gumball in his free time has been watching way too much Dragon Ball Z.
And I'll turn into a Super Saiyan.
It's over 9,000!
That's not quite the transformation I was hoping for.
And honestly, I don't blame him. Past all of that, Darwin questions why Anais is in school considering she's only about 4 years old. Well, maybe Darwin, it's because she's that smart and y'all are that stupid. Just some food for thought. In shock, Anais tells them both that there are more students that attend Elmore Junior High outside of their grade. Because of Gumball's ignorance, Anais gives Gumball a reality check.
Open your mind.
Thanks to Anais, she opens his eyes to realize that there are more people out there that live in Gumball's amazing world. Some with lives more interesting than him. With this newfound perspective, we then come across the star of the episode. Ladies and gentlemen, meet Claire Cooper, a melodramatic girl who's trying to adjust to the customs of Elmore with the little time she has. But in all seriousness, she has a story to tell. This now is no longer the amazing world of Gumball, it's the so-called world of Claire. Claire is your typical emo, cut my life into pieces, Hot Topic wearing, Twilight watching, Zoe 101, ooh type of girl. Her life is a complete mess right now, and she's on her way out of Elmore because her father lost his financial job, which is forcing her to move back to Detroit. This is her last day in Elmore, which
Gumball was devastatingly, inhumanly beautiful. His face was like a classic painting crafted by an old master.
Who are you?
As to be expected, Gumball looks from a distance and feels the need to chime in on Claire's business. Now the thing here is, Claire is basically monologuing her entire situation. She's planning to say goodbye to her friends on her last day, but as she's monologuing, Gumball is redirecting her story so that it's not as tragic as she's making it out to be.
Wilson always struggled with his identity.
But Gumball and Darwin would help Wilson find himself.
It was going to be a tearful goodbye.
But I knew that with the help of Gumball and Darwin...
Better get to it now while I still have the strength in my heart.
Now, in one instance, you can look at this as Gumball trying to make her see the brighter side of things. Or you can look at it as Gumball not being able to come to grips that this story isn't about him, and he doesn't need to self-insert into everyone's business. Being the only voice of reason, Anais tells Gumball the exact same thing that I've been saying.
You're only getting involved in your story so you can be the center of attention, and as usual, you'll ignore anything that gets in your way. No, don't you dare make me disappear!
Like I said, with most narcissists, if they feel they aren't the center of attention, they will find a way to make it that way. Just like with Larry, they will not leave this girl alone. But with this, things get a little scary.
Let them help you.
But they seem really bad at helping.
Oh, they are. But they're even worse when they don't get their own way.
Gumball and Darwin want to help Claire so bad that they begin to stalk her. The idea of someone stalking you constantly until they get what they want from you is far too real to think about. To feel no matter what you do, no matter where you go, they will always be there. After constant manipulation of Claire's friends, Claire finally puts her foot down.
You think you live in some amazing magic wonderland where everything has a happy ending? Well, the truth is, this is real life. And bad things happen in real life.
And so with the day almost over, Claire gives her final remarks. With her mind set back on returning to Detroit, she can now finish her story.
Stop the bus! We fixed everything!
Gumball looks to stop the bus that Claire is on, but she's not having any of it, so Gumball stops it by force.
Qualified? You don't need a qualification if you got a made-up magic job. Are you really happy, Mr. Cooper?
Yes?
I think what he meant was... Yeah!
What about my magician house?
Well, Mrs. Childenham used her broomstick to find the end of the rainbow when she stole a pot of gold from a leprechaun, which she used to buy it back! And who can forget your old buddy Wilson? Well, when he saw Captain Goldfish riding a T-Rex down the freeway, he realized that maybe he wasn't so strange after all. Right, Wilson? Right. And the cherry on top, Jared and Claire, you are hereby elected the prom king and queen of Elmore Junior High!
Just go with it. These people are insane.
Take that! Made a happy ending that you only want!
Instead of just letting someone else's story play out how it was supposed to, Gumball made it about himself and changed it to how he would have liked it to end. Now, you can say that he helped Claire in ways she never imagined. He did get her father a job and she no longer has to leave, but at the same time, he helped her when she never asked for it. When I was watching this episode over again, it hit me like a ton of bricks. There were several narcissistic traits that Gumball had shown for us to see in all of its glory, which all played out as follows. Gumball's arrogance prevented him from seeing that there were more students that not only attended his school, but lived in Elmore. His need to be the center of attention is what led him to feel like he needed to get involved in Claire's story. Gumball then used manipulation to try and get Claire's friends to work things out behind her back. Once Claire put her foot down, Gumball became highly sensitive to criticism and used that as motivation to help Claire even more. Instead of keeping things private, Gumball then made a fairly common family situation feel grand when it didn't need to be, and in the grand scheme of things, exploited Claire's misfortune to make himself look like the hero of the story. And I don't think it's a coincidence that the writers changed something as simple as Gumball's eye color to drive this point home. Gumball is insane. The idea of a story ending without him in it is what caused him to go overboard. Now yes, there's confetti everywhere and people are cheering for her, but in Gumball's eyes, this is all for him. The praise, the admiration, the love, everything. How Gumball sees it, this may be Claire's story, but this is his world. And now that I'm thinking about it, all of this show, this video, it all has a bigger message behind it. We as people naturally feel we can help everyone because we have something to offer, but no means no. And not everyone needs our help. Sometimes, guys, we just have to let people do them. Otherwise, by us being too insistent to help, we actually become the problem. And if you think this wouldn't have any long-term effects, well, we see Claire remain in Elmore in later episodes, and she becomes a mainstay. Claire is a character who took the spotlight away from Gumball, and we all saw what happened because of it. But she was someone who wasn't close to Gumball in any way. They never were friends, and they never hung out. She just appeared out of nowhere for an episode. But who do you get when someone takes the spotlight away from Gumball that he considers a close friend? Well, you get a character like Tobias. Tobias, in many ways, is a lot like Gumball. Besides being a bro chad that is sporty and thinks he can pull any chick with his unmatched riz, he has an extremely high ego, to the point where everyone around him thinks he's annoying. And that's why you see Tobias and Gumball hang out in certain episodes, because they both share the same narcissistic traits. If you think I'm lying, Tobias says it himself here.
What do you mean the
all stems from a narcissistic delusion brought on by my inner fear about facing my true place in the universe.
An episode that I think shows this the best is The Test. The episode starts with Gumball, Darwin, and Sarah surfing the web until they are convinced to take a personality test. After some extremely irrelevant questions, it is revealed that Gumball has the personality of a loser. I know, big surprise, right? The biggest thing with this scene is that Sarah explains to Gumball what a loser is in a way that adds to my argument about him.
A loser usually likes to criticize everyone but stays completely oblivious to their own failings.
Of course, Gumball is not happy with this result, and so he essentially has a coming to Jesus moment with himself. Does he want to continue being a loser, or does he want to be something more?
I just want to be popular.
What are you gonna do then?
The exact reverse of everything I'd normally do.
I just find it funny that it took an irrelevant personality test to make him realize this, but moving on. And so you'd think what Gumball meant by this was, instead of insulting someone, he'd actually have something nice to say, or decide to take the high road. But no, this is actually what he meant. After all the shenanigans, Gumball is redirected by Darwin with advice he should have applied the first time around. And this is where things get interesting.
Hey dudes! Notice anything different?
Now, as I said, Tobias thinks he's a lot cooler than he really is. He actually looks like me fresh out of high school. This new look on Tobias fills Gumball with a deadly venom. The only way he can let out this venom is by saying the most disrespectful comments that he could make. Things like,
You look like a cannelloni filled with idiocy! You look like the sausage on top of your head hasn't finished loading! You look like a snore!
when I said narcissism brings about a lot of toxic traits, this is what I meant.
Your hair looks like a man's ass!
What was that? The venom I'm keeping inside.
Gumball's new personality even catches the attention of the Elmore students. They start to notice that he has nothing slick or mean to say. This new direction has made him popular. However, to rain on his parade, Tobias does the very thing that got Claire in hot water. Tobias takes the spotlight away from Gumball and turns his own life into a cheesy sitcom, which makes him the new main character of the episode. I don't find it a coincidence that Tobias interacts with Claire of all people and impresses her far better than Gumball ever could. Essentially, whatever Gumball can do, Tobias can do much better. Like with Claire, you would think that Gumball would have a problem with Tobias stealing his thunder, but surprisingly, it's the opposite. Gumball genuinely wants to be a better person, so he refuses to retaliate. While I do admire that, things get bad. Really bad.
Hey, dude! You need to be the loser again! What the?
All of the negativity, the insults, the hatred that Gumball is trying to keep within, it's poisoning him. But Gumball still refuses to go back to his old ways because everyone loves this new version of him. But just when it seems like there is no turning back for Gumball, Tobias completely crosses the line. Not only has Tobias taken away Gumball's top spot, he'd take away his home, his family, and most importantly, his girlfriend.
So, Penny, I was thinking we should have a dinner date at that new diner dinner.
That's easy for you to say.
Come on then, friend.
This would be the last straw that Tobias would pull, which forces Gumball to revert back to his old narcissistic self. With Tobias stuck within a hospital bed, Gumball finally reminds him of who he is.
Allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is Ho, H to the O-V.
This episode was essentially Gumball turning away from his narcissistic ways, but on the other side of that, it would poison him with each moment that passed. And Tobias is as much of a narcissist as Gumball is. He's willing to do anything to get the attention that he wants. That's why in an episode like The One, he takes out all of Gumball's other friends in order to make himself the only friend, even including Darwin. Just like with Claire, the moment Tobias took his spot, Gumball felt he had to take over. But it also begs the question, if Gumball were to turn away from being a narcissist, would he be able to live? Well, it certainly looks like he wouldn't. And I think that's because Gumball is too far gone to be a better person. All of the poison within him is the embodiment of his toxic traits. His narcissism is his lifeline, and without it, he's nothing. Now that we flushed out what Gumball's problem is, the next natural question is, how? How did Gumball grow to be a narcissist, considering he wasn't always like this? Well, when I was researching some of the causes of how narcissism is developed, I came across something interesting. According to clevelandclinic.org, there may be connections to negative childhood experiences with narcissism. Things like trauma, rejection, neglect, and lack of support during childhood. At first I thought about it and then I said to myself, I don't think Gumball has dealt with any of these issues, at least not to a degree that it would affect him heavily. But then I started looking through more episodes and thought, wow, this all applies to Gumball to a T. But how exactly has Gumball become a victim to things like rejection and lack of support? After all, he does seem to have a pretty decent support system with a mom and dad both in the picture. They would have to be the causers of the abuse for this to even be remotely true. Or do they? Who's to say that Richard and Nicole didn't have complicated family relationships that didn't rub off on Gumball? Well, before we can go any further into Gumball's narcissism, we need to dive deeper into the early life of his parents to see if that had any effect. But before we dive any deeper, a quick message. Hey guys, I have a Patreon open and I love nothing more than for you to sign up, join today, and support the channel. If you sign up today, you'll get a multitude of perks. You get early access to my videos, sneak peeks, your name placed at the end of them, and in monthly community posts. Any copyright claim content on YouTube will remain on my Patreon. Thank you so much. Now back to your regularly scheduled program. The first episode that we will be looking at is from Nicole's side, named The Choices. The episode begins in the dining room where Gumball, Darwin, and Anais are being a little rowdier than usual. In the kitchen, Nicole and Richard are having a rough time making dinner. More so Nicole. She is absolutely heated that dinner isn't made on time. So you got the kids acting up, your husband is being nonchalant about everything, and the food isn't made, and it also catches on fire? That's tough. As if it couldn't get any worse, Darwin adds insult to injury.
I got this!
Now, if Nicole's temper was a caged animal, then that animal has been let out. Now, in all fairness, this should be a regular night in the eyes of Nicole. She's probably had to deal with tons of family dinners that ended up with her creamed in the face. But this family dinner would hit a little differently this time. In this moment, Nicole starts to question all of her life decisions leading up to now. Things like, did she choose the right career? Marry the right man? Have the right children? Well, not only do we get an episode that answers these questions, but this is where we get a first ever look into Nicole's family life. So the question now is, what was it like? Well, here we see a young Nicole in the car with her mom and dad. Dressed in a gi, she's on her way to a karate tournament that they are late to due to a traffic jam. But besides that, the first interaction we see between her and her mother is her getting scolded.
We need to talk about your report card.
But I got straight A's.
Not here. Gender.
Yeah, F because I'm female.
Being a girl is not an excuse.
I think this petty interaction between Nicole and her mother tells us a lot about her childhood. Nicole has always been a winner. I'm sure even well before the 7th grade. Nicole has to be more than just a winner. She has to be someone that no matter what's thrown at her, finds a way to overcome it with ease and perfection. She cannot make any mistakes. Nicole's father's anger issues put the car out of commission, which now puts Nicole in a predicament. She has to make it to her tournament, which God knows how many miles is away, on foot. Oh, and she obviously has to get first place. So yeah, Nicole's childhood was on Dark Souls difficulty. As she's Naruto running through a park, not only does she come across some familiar faces in the series, but more importantly, comes across Richard, who's stuck inside of a tree log.
Okay, don't move.
This would signify the first time that Nicole and Richard would meet. Nicole starts to imagine a life where things played out differently. Scenarios like, what if she turned the other way and made it to her tournament in time? Well, she would have been an absolute powerhouse. Nicole would have excelled in sports, school, business, politics, and if it ever got to that point, world domination. Well, what if she married another person? Instead of Richard, how about Banana Bob?
Nicole, are you okay?
Or maybe even Harold Wilson.
So, how do you like the sushi? It took me hours.
It's cold.
Let me heat it up for you.
Is that hot enough for you? Is it hot enough?
Nicole is even going down to the littlest of choices, such as stepping on a butterfly. But after playing out every scenario, the only outcome that she would be comfortable with is the one that she ended up choosing all along, Richard Watterson. Now, the obvious thing about Richard is he is everything that Nicole is not. But the most valuable trait that will catch Nicole's attention is he puts no impossible expectations on her. Unlike her parents that constantly look at her life through a microscope and expect her to graduate top of her class and marry a doctor and become a billionaire at 15 or whatever, Richard simply wants to get to know her and be her friend. This wholesome moment completely shatters all of the expectations that she has had to live up to since she was a baby. And so now, she actually starts to live life. Because of Nicole's new lease on life, she would leave her parents and start a brand new one with Richard. Yes, she wasn't dating some giga Chad with a 12-pack, handsome, and making 7 figures a year, but she was with someone who saw her as a real person. I'm telling you right now, if there's a person in your life that makes you feel like you can be yourself without having to live up to these impossible expectations, you need to appreciate that person because they will save you a whole lot of unfulfilling moments in your life. Now, as I said earlier, Richard's family upbringing wasn't perfect either. In the episode The Signature, Richard's biological father returns back into his life after leaving 31 years ago. Richard was hit with the all too familiar, "Hey son, I'm going to the grocery store to grab some milk. I'll be right back." But it looks like that trip to the grocery store took over 3 decades. I'd imagine after not seeing your father in so long that there'd be some tension still left in the room. The reason why he left in the first place was due to him and Richard's mother, Granny JoJo, butting heads. In her words specifically,
Frankie Watterson's nothing but a con man and a shyster.
Frankie Watterson is exactly how Granny JoJo described him to be, a con man. He will sell you sand in the desert. Ultimately, he'll do whatever it takes to get ahead, even if it means putting his own family beneath him, just like here. In a newspaper ad that the kids put out to make him come home to handle some family custodies, he uses that as an opportunity to actually gain custody of the house. Now that is some nasty work. The entire family heads to town hall to stop him from doing this, but they seem to be too late. As Frankie is about to turn in the papers, he gives Richard one last look. The same look he gave him when he walked out of his life. Does Frankie really want to walk out again? and repeat this cold cycle of neglect? Well, things are different this time. After some thinking, Frankie allows the family customs to be handled and even signs the rights away to be Richard's father again. And we get this wholesome family moment to end the episode.
We are family! Nothing rhymes with family!
Now, how does this all tie together? And the bigger question is, how does this all affect Gumball? Well, the thing here is that Nicole and Richard came from very traumatic family backgrounds. Their respective childhoods will create the monster that is Gumball. As a matter of fact, if you think about it deeper, Gumball, Darwin, and Anais are all representations of both Nicole and Richard's traumatic experiences. Don't believe me? Well, check this out. Anais has the features of Richard, but very much favors a side of Nicole that has to be the most intelligent, competitive, and aggressive person in order to get approval from others. Darwin obviously isn't related by blood, but he shows a side of Richard that kind of goes with the flow of things. He's kind-hearted and innocent in nature, but oftentimes is taken advantage of because of it. Kind of like how Richard's father took advantage of him. And Gumball is all of that in one. Whether it's realized or not, Nicole has instilled that desire in Gumball to be ultra competitive. That's why he feels like he needs to knock down anyone that may take the spotlight away from him. Like how Nicole was knocking people down in her karate tournaments. It's also why in an episode like The Fridge, Nicole challenges Gumball and the rest of the family to a deadly game of paintball to turn him into a winner. Guys, this episode right here is powerful because Nicole brings back a side of her that has plagued her childhood. Her desire to be ultra competitive not only tears the family apart, but more importantly, it plagues Gumball. And because of Richard's absence of a father, he has instilled in Gumball that lack of leadership and accountability that a father would know how to give. He doesn't care much about other people's problems. The times where he does consider them and decides to lead, he'll do things that often makes the situation worse, or sees how he can benefit from it through exploitation, just like Richard's father. For example, in the later seasons, we actually get to see a reunion between Nicole and her parents after the chaotic relationship that they've had. And it turns out that it was all a misunderstanding. After letting off some steam, Nicole and her family are reunited, and no one wanted this moment to happen more than Gumball. But do you want to know why Gumball wanted his family issues to be resolved?
That wasn't about them. That was about the Christmas presents they owe us.
Uniting your family so you can get more Christmas presents is nasty work, devious behavior, whatever you want to describe it to be. Although clever. But that's the thing about narcissists that bothers me. We all know real life people that have this self-absorbed, attention-seeking personality. They are willing to go to extreme lengths to gain clout, money, and attention. How many influencers and celebrities do you know that are like this? Their life seems like a mess, but it's made to be that way because it draws in people. We as humans can't help but to look at a car crash waiting to happen. That's what Gumball's life is, and as long as he knows people are watching, he will continue to be that narcissist. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that because Gumball has become this terrible person that the show doesn't deserve to be successful. I'm actually saying the opposite. Because of Gumball's narcissistic traits, I have laughed more times than I can remember, and even here on YouTube had gotten me my first bit of money. Without Gumball, Murrayvation doesn't exist, and I'm extremely grateful for what Ben Bacolet has given us. With the journey that Gumball has taken us on and the many more things to come in the future, Gumball's serious problem is a good problem to have.